Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining tonight. My name is Jayla, and I am the new host for the new and improved You Ask We Answer segment. I originally joined the We team in the fall of 2019 while attending the illustrious Clark Atlanta University, and I have been with the team ever since. I love Women Engaged. This is a great organization. Everything the org does is for the people and for the community. Hope that we are able to engage and inform everyone. There is a slight disclaimer. Women Engaged is a 501c3 nonprofit. Any information that is shared tonight is solely for educational purposes. Women Engaged does not endorse or disparage any political party or candidate. So, with that being said, You Ask We Answers launched in October 2020 for Women Engaged to continue to provide political education in the midst of the ongoing pandemic in the 2020 election cycle. Since then, we have had 4 seasons and streamed to all our social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. The sole purpose of this show is to create a safe space to have conversations inspired by our interactions in the community through our work and provide fact based political education to inspire, change, and connect. So, with that being said, we really want to hear from you, everyone who is watching this live right now. As we engage in the show, please make sure to let us know your questions or provide any thoughts or comments, and we can pull you into the dialogue. Now, as we know, a lot has happened since our last episode in 2023. Of course, we've had the notorious 2024 elections, and also Women Engaged turned 10 last year, and we had such a huge celebration for our decade. So, who else better to be our first guest than the creator herself of the series and now Chief Operations Officer, Michelle Wilson, to bring us up with the times and make sense of what's really going on right now in 2025. So, Michelle, come to the stage. Yay!
Hey, Jayla. Oh my gosh. It's good to be back. I'm excited. How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm feeling great. I missed my hour, but it's okay.
I feel that. I feel like every year around this time in my social media memories is like memes of like mean girls, and it's like who in here has been personally victimized by daylight savings, and it's like me. Oh my gosh. So no, I totally understand. But yeah, this is it's a time. It's interesting too because I always use daylight savings as like a tool to talk about policy. Because
Mm.
every year, most states except for Arizona, because they voted to abolish it, it's a policy that enacts daylight savings per state. So
Oh,
you could,
wow.
that could be an advocacy thing for people who are interested. Like talk to your legislators because it's usually a bill that's introduced because everybody's like, we hate daylight savings, but it never moves. So just a little bit of tidbit information. And I feel like I say that every time because we usually have something going on. I say that every time on this show about daylight savings being a thing that we can advocate for.
Yes. Of advocating for things. Let's catch up. What's been going on since 2023? Because as we know, it's been just a lot every day since 2025 even came to Earth, like every day. So what's been going on? Catch us up.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't even know where to begin. Like, I mean, as you mentioned, the 2024 elections were happening, but I think in the midst of that, what was really great and a really great source of joy for us here at the organization, as you said, is that we turned 10 years old, which was an amazing feat, especially for Black founded, Black led organizations that do this type of work. And so we kicked off the year with a banned book fair that we did in conjunction with the National Arts Fund, the Black National Arts Fund here in Atlanta. It was an amazing event, well attended. We had like a panel discussion too about the role of Black men in the movement. and really in like some work of trying to move men from like allyship to like agency when we talk about repro stuff or like reproductive justice rights. Because I feel like sometimes, like, at least for me, when I talk to Black men and I tell them that we're like, we do reproductive justice work, they're like, well, I have, you know, daughters and sisters and aunts and mom and my mom and my grandma. And I'm like, yeah, but like, what about you? You know, because oftentimes they're always waiting for like us. So it was a really great conversation, a really great panel that we had with some great feedback. And then we also had our annual summer kickoff event, which last year was really special. It was headlined by R&B Grammy-nominated singer Anthony Davis, so that was really fun. We also had some musical stylists from Muziki Scales, and it was just a great outdoor event. Like we had like free popsicles from Moki Pops, which is like a young business. Like it was created by 3 young Black kids, and their parents helped see the vision through, and so they're doing amazing work. The popsicles, I believe, are vegan and sourced really, really well. So like it was a great time outside. We had it at Grant Park. And then what else did we do? We had an event at Greenbrier Mall for National Voter Registration Day, which food was catered by Local Green. We did a lot of great stuff there, had a press conference, had some great partners with that as well. And then to top it all off, we had our brunch, which I co-hosted with Francesca Ramsey. Malika entered into a really great conversation with Maya Penn, as both being young people who were ahead of their time, talking about like what it means for Black women in leadership, what it means in movement work, and just it was a really great conversation. So if folks haven't seen it, there's a lot more highlights on social media, there's a lot more highlights on YouTube. Check it out. Yes, it was a great time. The theme was Afro-Victorian, so like a lot of people were really loving that too. But yeah, I really wanted to share that. Like it was a great time. So I feel like that was happening in the undercurrent, of course, of what was going on last year. As we know, as things kind of dwindled down, we went through the presidential election between which ended up being between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, because the year didn't start off that way. And so she had like roughly 100 days to do her campaign. And then after that, we did have a little bit of a runoff election here in a few local areas for Georgia. So we did some work around that as well. So that's a little bit of a snapshot. Like I could go on and on about all the stuff that we did in that year, but definitely just wanted to, name that. And, shout out to everybody in the chat. I see y'all. Hey Malika. Hey Andrea. Hey James. Thank y'all for being here. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to dive into. I could talk forever about 2024.
Well, I could say Women Engaged as a whole, clearly, even though you just named the highlights, had a wonderful year last year. You guys that's listening at the brunch that Michelle is mentioning right now was absolutely amazing. Please go look on our social medias and make sure to be there this year, because it's not an event you want to miss. So definitely be on the lookout for that. I just have to say that because it was beautiful. Food, delicious. The acts, the conversations, the atmosphere, everything was just 10 out of 10. So yes, we did amazing with that.
Yeah.
Not just saying that to say that.
I appreciate it. Like it was so amazing. It was amazing. And I had a great time with it. And so I feel like that's what kind of like in the aftermath of 24,
right,
and as we moved into 25, and something that's been like on our list for a while now was to really just bring back the show as an opportunity to connect with folks and talk to people. I think back to like when we first started it, like the amazing feedback that we got from folks around this, and like having opportunities to be in dialogue with people, pulling them in, talking about it, and really fostering community because it's needed. And like doing this in a multitude of ways, right? So like this is one of the many ways that we're working to connect with folks in community about the issues that matter most to them, but also to let you guys know what we're hearing from people or have heard from people in community and bringing it back to the folks so we can be in dialogue with everyone.
Right. Speaking of this new and improved You Ask, We Answer segment that we have brought back, there are a couple of things we would like to go over about what to expect. Of course, this is all meant to still meet the needs of the community and be more consistent. This is going to be an ongoing thing. Definitely, if you don't follow us, make sure you follow us. If you don't have our post notifications on, make sure you have those on so that you won't miss the next time that we post our next episode. So what is staying the same is we're still going to be virtual. We're still going to have dialogue, and it's still going to be within no longer than an hour. But some of the changes that are happening, I am the new host, as I mentioned before, and that we will be doing this once a month in the evening time.
Yeah. And I feel like I want to highlight too, like I'm so excited for you to take on the hosting of this show. I think something for us at Women Engage is something that I really appreciate about Malika's leadership is the investment in young people and young voices. So like I joined Women Engage team when I was like 25, 26. Okay. And I'm aging out of youth. Okay. As much as I be going places, like I was just at a book event that we had co-sponsored. Plug for Vanessa Daniels' book, Unrig the Game, about how women of color could teach people about winning. Really great stuff. It talks about social movements and everything. But I had asked a question. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm a young-ish. And everybody was like, oh, you're still young. And I was like, yeah, I'm turning 34 this year. Which, yes, in the grand scheme of life is young, but like I'm not a youth. Okay, like I'm not a youth anymore. And and I think that like it's okay. Like I think that's the other part. Like when people hear that I say I'm not young, they're like, "Oh no!" And I'm like, for one, I have no issues with aging. I think aging is a beautiful gift that I am totally ready to receive and be blessed with, right? But also too, that like something that Malika and Women Engage has worked to cultivate is a very intergenerational perspective of how we approach the work, which is something that's different than what you see in the mainstream. Because mainstream is like very segmented. It's like like baby boomers over here, millennials over here, Gen Z over here, and then Gen X is there. But then that's why everybody calls like everybody doesn't give as much attention to Gen X, and this is all these moving parts. And it's like, no, we're a community. We can all gain something from each other. So that's why I'm really excited about bringing you onto the show and for you to take on the mantle of like doing the hosting for it, because we need to continue that ability there. So I'm super excited. And that's also my call out to everyone who's listening to like also listen to young people and give young people opportunities to like do, because I mean, I don't think I could be half of the person I am today if people like Malika and other folks didn't believe in my abilities when I was a young person and pour into me. So I'm asking everybody else to also pour into young people as well. So sorry, I just wanted to flag that and say that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. I've been here for a long time, but I love it here clearly. And yeah, and I said I started with you guys in 2019. So I was like literally 20, about to turn 21. And now I am 26. That's really crazy. So excited to be here. I love it here.
I understand. It's like, I tell people like Women Engage is like an oasis in the movement work. And so, yeah. And I think the other part about the reason why we also want to bring back this show too is like for us, a big part about what we do is like really providing what a lot of folks talk about is like thought leadership. So one of the things that we task ourselves with, or how we've described, is kind of like being the concierge of the work that we do. So it's on us as staff members and stuff to be really astute in terms of being able to do the research, being knowledgeable, and finding fact-based information that we then turn and like teach to other folks, and then those folks teach to other folks. And that's something that's always been important. There's always been this thing around misinformation, disinformation, and now malinformation, which if folks have questions about what that is, I can go into more details, but it's more so just about the aspect that sometimes it's just hard to know what's real and what's not. And especially now in 2025 with like all of the AI generated content, of course, bots have always been a thing. And then also too, now the new what I'm considering are propaganda machines in mass media, or like where sometimes you could go directly to a government site to get the information. And now it's like, you may not want to go there no more because that information is not necessarily the most truthful, does not provide that right perspective. So In the show, we're also introducing a segment that's like a fact-checking segment. So we're asking folks, between now and the next episode or even today to ask us those questions, and we'll provide opportunities to do some fact-checking for that, whether it's live on air or in post between episodes and stuff like that, just because we want to make sure that we're continuing to have that dialogue. So we're not just going forward with what we think is the correct information, So, and I think that was inspired too, just because I think of I don't know if folks remember earlier this year, it was being reported out that the U.S. sent $50 million worth of condoms.
I remember that.
To Palestine and other humanitarian efforts. And when you peel back the facts about it, that was totally untrue, because in the global scheme of humanitarian efforts, right? I think the most that has ever been spent on something in that way for condoms per se, I think was maybe at most $5 million. So there's no way that $50 million worth of one type of thing is being poured into such a small part of the world, right? And also too, just to know that that's not how humanitarian aid works, right? In terms of yes, people need access to comprehensive healthcare products and things like that, such as menstrual products and other things of that nature, all across the globe for various reasons, but that's just not how it works. So when I heard about that, and especially because I've had conversations with other people around it too, is that really finding a need for us just to have some dialogue about it, for folks to be able to pour in some of the things that they've heard, and for us to just talk to each other and know that it's not at least, especially from us, I'm not, and Women Engaged we don't shame people, because it's it's too much, it's a lot going on right now, and there's a lot of information out there, and so yeah, but we're here to assist, to provide that. So I'm excited about having that kind of segment for the show this time around, because it's just so important, especially now, just so we're all on the same page about how the government actually functions, how funding is functioning in terms of the trickle down and stuff like that.
Yes, especially with like you mentioned, AI has gotten very out of control every day. It is something a little insane that I see. And I just with the misinformation that's being spread so rapidly, it reminds me, I'm gonna quote an old lie from Megan Thee Stallion. She said, "People believe anything that's written font," and that's so true. That's so true. It's no credible source. It's nothing. They just see it on some type of template they made from Canva to make it look like a blog, and it's really something that somebody just made up. So fact checking right now is very important in actually looking at the resources and where you credit your source from, because like you said, the government websites, it's a little iffy now.
Mm-hmm. For real, because I've been seeing it too. What you said, people just slap an image with some font on top of it and say breaking news on top of it, and it's is this even real? Is this even a thing? I don't know. So yeah, I totally agree. Mm-mm.
Yes. So speaking of that, has there been anything recently that you have seen like that was pretty outrageous, aside from the 50 million condom budget?
I'm trying to think, to be honest, and that's only because, at least for me personally, I have severely reduced how much I am online. To be very frank. So I had to kind of go through my own little social media and scrub those type of things out, right? Because I was just I can't do this. But I do think that something that always, at least to me, sensationalizes it or doesn't get it right is that this is supposed to be a reputable news source, but it's not, and it's Fox News. For some reason on my Facebook, between Reuters and Fox News, it keeps coming up. I don't know why. But they're now starting to post those images with that stuff on there. And I'm trying to think, the latest was around the arrest of the protester at Columbia University. I can't remember his name at this time, but for folks who don't know, there was a protest against the genocides that were going on in Palestine, And so there was one student who is a permanent resident, like has a green card.
Mhm.
But due to his involvement in the protest, Trump revoked the green card status and had ICE go and detain them. When his fiance tried to go see him, they had like moved him to some other facility at the time. At the time, they didn't know, but it turns out they moved him to Louisiana. Right, which is like, whoa, like within like less than 24, 48 hours of what was going on. But when I looked at it initially on the site, on like when I saw it on Facebook, it was like grossly like mischaracterizing what was going on and like even like just the language around it. So that's what kind of got me into digging around it. But yeah, honestly though, I tried not to engage much. My social media days are pretty numbered. Like I only really stay online to stay connected with people and to like stay up to date about like what other folks might be reading.
Understandable. So with one thing that I've been noticing, not necessarily calling it misinformation, but some very hot topics that I've been seeing over the past couple of weeks regarding these new changes that we've been seeing taking place are the big cuts in federal workers and yeah, all the federal workers basically. So what do we feel about this? What do we make of this?
Like
That's not people.
I know, and it's like it's ridiculous. Like I can say that much for certain because I think right now with the department that Elon Musk was appointed to, in conjunction with what's going on, there's already been a lot of discourse and a lot of pushback from like elected officials like Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and others who are talking about how like Elon shouldn't have this type of ability to say the things and make these type of recommendations. I am though slightly hopeful because there was a federal judge that recently reported, I think either today or yesterday, that due to it being a federal agency and department that he heads, they have to show the public what the plan is. So like in terms of like you have to show what the plan is because right now there it doesn't seem like there has been a plan in place. And I'll say that too, that just like in the perspective of like how not even just government works, but just like how business works, right? Because a lot of these people are believing or like leaning into what this current administration is doing because they're like, oh, this is a business person and they're going to run things like a business. It's like, for one, the government in itself as an entity is not a business, it's a government, right? Like, I think that that's the first part. And this idea, this quest to like, quote unquote, save money or right size the budget of this country is very disingenuous because it doesn't talk about the reality of what a country has. Most countries in the world, and not even most, like all countries in the world, have some level of debt. Like I think people need to start there. I think so. Like there's that. Now the U.S. debt is technically high, but nobody has ever really peeled back like where that money is coming from. And instead, what's happening and what we've been seeing is that it's this idea of making it seem like it's on the workers. So they've been trying their efforts to try to like slim down the workforce, whether it's trying to get people to come back into offices that don't exist, right? Because it's like, oh, now everybody has to work in the office where most of these government agencies don't even have a lease or renting. Right. Like they're not even renting space for folks to do these things. Or like this idea that like, oh, what are you doing? And now having to say what you're doing and what's going on. But then I think the other part about it is too that I've been thinking about is that, and it's like the undercurrent of what's been happening in a lot of conservative movement work is this ability to try to shrink or minimize the role of the federal government. And it doesn't really take into consideration what the federal government actually does or what its role is. Because I don't think folks are really ready for what a United States looks like without like federal government or federal oversight or even federal funding. Because the way that this country is structured, each state literally operates like its own mini country. And then the federal government connects us all in terms of its protections, the funding, the representation in the global arena. And so I think that right now what we're seeing is that like it's this effort to try to shrink something, and now we're seeing the blowback in terms of like the true value of what it means to have a federal government for something like the United States.
Right. And so I'm so happy you brought up the going back into the office thing because I was just about to ask about that. And also another thing I want to ask about is another thing I've been seeing and I want to know, and other people might want to know as well, is do you think that this is actually might be happening, or is this more of a fear mongering thing? And that is, of course, we see that the economy does not look like it's going in a great direction right now. Doesn't look like that at all. Actually, like it's going in a terrible direction. But who knows? A new day is every day. But I've been seeing people say that, okay, we're going towards another recession. And I've been seeing people go as far as to say that we're going towards another like Great Depression. Do you think that that's accurate to go that far to say that we might be in another Great Depression 2.0?
I don't think. Okay, this is a couple of things I think there. I don't think we should discount what economists are saying in terms of the signals and the warnings that we're getting from the economy, right?
Mhm.
Now, I will say too that like a depression doesn't just happen overnight
Right.
either. So like I wouldn't say it's fear mongering, but I do want to like help people in the sense that like it doesn't mean it happens overnight. So we should be okay with that. But I do think we need to like be prepared and understand too, especially because this is also even coming from the White House, that things are going to get more rough for us economically speaking. And a part of that is driven by the kind of escalating aggressiveness in the global trade wars that have been instigated by the administration, particularly between Canada, Mexico, and the EU and China. And like some of the things that are going on there. I think recently Trump has threatened to increase the tariffs on steel by 25%, so that making it up to 50%. We've seen the retributive acts from Canada where they're no longer selling US based liquors in their store. Like it's like this idea of things, and it's going to have a ripple effect as it continues to like impact folks. And I think that that's kind of what we're seeing right now, and it's really just destabilizing everything. It also too reminds me just of the kind of like how I felt originally in 2015 when we saw the rise of Trump in his first presidency. And the reason I say that is because like it's starting to destabilize things in a way that like even the economists are trying to find a way to get like a good pulse about it.
Mhm.
And so I think that that's kind of where it is. So it's kind of like a catch-22. I can't say for certain if we will be heading in these directions, but there are some very strong indicators that if things don't change, then that's where we might end up in a few years or in a couple of years, depending on how things accelerate. I do think though that that's where a lot of us can be called on to talk to our legislators, particularly our Congress members right now, because our congressional members are the ones who are supposed to have the power over the what we call the power of the purse in political science, the power over the budget for the United States, like the like actual allocation of funding. Whereas the executive branch, the one that Trump oversees, is the one that like executes the policies and executes the stuff with the funding that's given. And so it really takes for folks to really speak to their legislators right now in a very real way. When I say in a very real way, I think social media is fine if that's a place you want to air out your grievances. But I mean, we gotta like I'm talking like write a letter, write an email, make a phone call, contact them directly versus like talking to just your friends and family on your social media platforms, because that's the things that they see and that's the things that they care about. I remember in 2019 when we were doing the work around the abortion bill here in Georgia, I remember a legislator telling me straight up was like, if you're not a voter of mine, I don't care what you're saying.
Mm.
So that's why I said like it's important for us to talk to the people who represent us, and you can start off the message say, hey, I live here, I'm a voter, this is what's going on, or I'm a potential voter, this is what's going on, and this is what I need you to do. And those are the type of things that they are carrying in there with them that's going to make them take action, because a lot of them are really interested in maintaining their seats of power or maintaining power for whatever side or political party that they might be for. So that's one strategy that I think that can help curb what that looks like. But yeah, that's what I have for that part. I think in terms of the working back in the office versus not, especially in terms of the federal government, it's just a way for him to try to force people into like this idea of like a forced resignation. I think it's also too that like sowing a lot of discord because of making like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion synonymous with like people of color when it's not, you know, I think that's the other part of that, when it's not, and how now in the aftermath of things that are going on, a lot of people who didn't consider themselves quote unquote DEI now finding that out that they were those type of hires is interesting to me, because it's like diversity, equity, inclusion includes like accessibility for disabled people. And the truth is that disabled people, anybody can be disabled, whether it's short term, long term. Like if you break your leg, you're disabled for 6 weeks. I mean, like it's just let's be real about it. If you're a pregnant person or somebody who's adopting, stuff like that, like there's different levels of like when we talk about inclusivity and equity and diversity in the workplace that still needs to happen. That is more in totality than just like quote unquote people of color. So I think that like even in that aspect of it and the need for the federal government to put people back in office, it's just a calling card to a group of potential voters for the administration who just don't have a realistic sense of what people in federal government are actually doing, and what it takes for them to do their jobs.
Okay, yes, that's a lot. But I do love that you said that you mentioned that. Yes, it's great to, you know, put out your feelings on social media and talk about your friends, talk to your friends and family about it. But at the end of the day, if you really, really want your voice to be heard, of course, vote, of course, show up at the polls. But before we even make it to the elections, make sure you call them directly, email, letters. Yes, that's what I should start doing, picking up a step. So I am guilty myself. Okay.
It's okay, because it's something that we don't talk about often enough. I think you know, at least for me, and I say this as somebody who has been a chronic person who like has been online for most of my life, the culture around it, right? And there's like some psychology about it too, that I've been reading about, where it's like if you say the thing where you're like frustrated already on social media and you get the people who are like, yeah, you better tell them or whatever, it like signals something in your brain like you've already done it, like you've already done the thing that needs to be done. And so what I'm always just asking for folks is just to kind of like reroute some of that information into that, right? Like in terms of like take that same energy you got for, you know, TikTok, Instagram, if you're still on Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, wherever you at nowadays. Right. Take that, put it into that letter to them and just did it. You can literally just copy and paste, honestly, your post if it's really that deep, and then just send it to them, right? Like I think that that's also a way to do it. I'm always about accessibility, about making it happen, because it's there and it's something that's really great to be done. And it's also something that we can help with people at Women Engage. That's one of the things that we do. So like oftentimes, especially during like legislative session here at the state, we create a hotline to connect people to the legislators to talk about reproductive justice bills that are on the floor. Like right now, shameless plug, we have the Reproductive Freedom Act that we've been doing some work on for the last few years, which would not only undo the abortion ban that's here, but also enact other protections for comprehensive health care for all Georgians here. So shout out for that. Check us out. Make sure to sign up on our website, womenengage.org, if you want more information /join. Sorry, I'm going to put that on the bottom. I'm just like, yes. But yeah, so no, I feel you on it, but it's something that I'm like, just copy and paste and just send it over to them.
Okay. So to bring it back to us, what is Women Engaged up to now? I know earlier in the show we did a brief overview of all the amazing things that were able to be accomplished in 2024, but what's going on now?
Oh my goodness. So for us, there's a lot going on. I think one of the big things this year for the areas that we serve is that there's a lot of local elections happening. So like mayor, city council elections, county commissioner elections, things of that nature. So we're really digging down deep to have some conversations around that ahead of those elections in the fall. I think these are elections that in our minds is really important, and also ones where we can see like direct results in terms of like our vote, and also just very much more accessible and less daunting than like a major general election for folks to get involved in. So we're doing some active recruiting around that. We're also preparing to launch our first campaign of the year. It's a deep dive canvas So usually in off-year elections, we have an opportunity to actually talk to people at longer times because people are not like rushing us off the phone because they're getting 5011 calls about voting for, some federal seat. so so we're excited to talk to people just again and like really foster those connections and build community with people about the issues. A couple issues that we're working on this year is around reparations. So folks remember we launched that work in 2021 where we're talking to people about what does it mean to actualize reparations on a local, state, and federal level for Black people in the United States. But also, what does that mean when we expand that concept beyond like Black capitalism? And so there's a really great episode that we had with Kwesi on our YouTube page if folks want to learn more about our reparations work. And then the other thing that we're looking at is around the Crown Act. For folks who don't know what the Crown Act is, that's an anti-hair discrimination bill that has seen different introductions happen both at a federal level, state level, and certain local levels. And surprisingly enough, the city of Atlanta does not have one. So that means that right, what you would think, right, what you would think that like given that's what it is. So we're trying to generate some conversation and see that through this year because it's something that's definitely needed. Like hair discrimination is bigger than just expression, which though expression is important. It's also just the fact that like for people of color, especially Black folks, our hair is also directly tied to like economic opportunities for us. This idea that like I could be rejected from a job because I have locks.
Right.
Right. The idea that like our children are being forced into in-school suspension because they're wearing cornrows. Right. Like these type of things that can happen because they're not adhering to these type of dress codes and stuff. So we're going to be doing some deep dive work around that this year. And so if folks are interested in that opportunity to join our Canvas team around that, you can apply online at our website, womenengage.org/careers. Positions start at $21 an hour. We do this work both in person and digitally. So we're really excited to get that going again.
Yes, that's very shocking. I really thought that this could be on me. I definitely thought that the Crown Act was just like all over nationwide. So the fact that it is not in effect, especially in a place like Atlanta, that's very shocking.
Right. And it's like, and these are things that I'm like, we're not thinking about, but it impacts us every day. And so really excited to talk more with folks about that in community and really see that over the finish line here for us because these are the things that are kind of needed in terms of really seeing this pathway forward. I think the last thing is it's just really for us to really dig back into our roots around storytelling. So last year, our theme was Sankofa, and we're still carrying that into this year in terms of the power that storytelling has to really galvanize change for us. So what I've been kind of playing with the language a bit, but it's like the idea of like how we tell the story of 10 years back, how we empower the present and how we're moving forward, right? So we're going to have some really exciting things around that. We're also going to have our summer kickoff this year, our National Voter Registration Day event this year. But our main goal is to really stay connected, boots on the ground with our folks. We're being at bus stops, barbershops, beauty salons, connecting with other businesses to really be able to table and talk to folks about the issues and really create those communities there. Because one of the biggest cornerstones for us is about taking those conversations that, oftentimes we have with our friends. We'd be like, girl, like, did you know that this school, or did you know that the city did da-da-da-da-da? And like, we can celebrate the resiliency and the resourcefulness of our people. But also what we're asking to do is to, at the same time, be able to hold those who are responsible and empower accountable to those things. And so really excited to dig down deep into that this year, to partner with more folks around that, and really continue to, again, build those stories, collect that information, and really boost up our advocacy around these issues, especially as we prepare not only for the local elections this year, but prepare for the midterm elections in 2026.
Hello, because it never stops. The work does not stop, y'all, okay? Especially not right now. Okay? We cannot stop. We have to keep on pushing. Okay? So, as tradition, we do not want to hold up your lovely night. The show always ends with a topic of self-care because at the end of the day, you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anything. And asking how are we sustaining. Now, this was very, very important in 2020 because as we know, the pandemic those times were just very different, very spooky. Self-care was very, very important. But it is definitely important now with the everything that we see in the news. Every day is new breaking news. It's new important news. So how are you staying sane in these times? I know you mentioned you lessen your social media screen
Yes.
time, and I should probably do that too. But what are some other ways to stay sane and so that people can figure out how they can feel empowered in this time and just level headed and not feel so drained every day?
I feel that, and I'm not perfect at this, y'all. So like, take this with a grain of salt. But it's like I'm doing a lot of things at the same time, and some of it's kind of paying off for me. So one, shout out to my care team. I have a great therapist who I see regularly to talk through these type of things and stuff like that. I think the other thing is too, when it comes to like the multitude of information that's coming on, I have also restricted myself from the amount of media, like in terms of news that I've consumed that's like from someone talking. And I just opt to read it. And I read it from a variety of different sources just to kind of help me make sense of stuff. And that helps me in terms of like keeping my levels kind of clear headed. I also have kind of like moved the bar for myself. So like a lot of times I hear folks are like, how are we sparking joy in these moments and stuff like that? My goal for this year is just to find moments of boredom. like, like it's to find moments of boredom. Because like if the idea is that the stuff is bogging me down and then like joy is gonna shoot me over, either way, my nervous system is like all over the place, and I'm really trying to find a good baseline.
Mm,
So nowadays it's really about me striving for like how can I find opportunities to be bored? Which
wow.
sounds like a little bit like, wow, that doesn't sound like fun. And it's like, it's not necessarily, it's not supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be boring. So
Right.
then that way I can like kind of cleanse my energy from being up or down and kind of be like a good mid. That's like my
Mm,
biggest thing. It's like I'm still doing video games. I'm still doing these like other things like that, but I'm still again trying to carve out those moments to like just kind of give myself that bit of rest. And then I think the last thing is just around like some somatic practices.
mhm,
So for folks who are not, somatic practices are really just an ability for you to like get in touch with what you're feeling in your body. I know for myself, oftentimes like when I'm stressed out or I feel overwhelmed by something, I jump into action mode like
mm,
quickly without like really understanding what's going on in my body. Like where am I holding the tenseness? Where am I holding the stress? And over time, it'd be hurting. Like I'd be like, dang, why my back hurt? Like, dang, why my
mhm,
jaw hurt? And then I realized that like I've been holding my jaw tight literally all week.
mm.
So I've been working on trying to find new ways to navigate that, continue to like make sure that like I'm being present in those moments. Um, and then I think lastly, it's just also to getting very real about my own capacity for things. Um, and I think the reason I say that is just because, especially when I think about like, the aftermath of 24 and everybody talks about the 90% and the work that Black women, like the work that we hold in movement spaces and things of that nature. And I also hold this too as just somebody who recently came into this understanding that like giving my all doesn't mean literally giving my all to the detriment of my own health. That's
Right.
a lesson that I learned very recently in my like adult life. I was like, "What do you mean I'm not supposed to give 100? I thought I asked for 100 and I'm giving 100." And they're like, "Yeah, like 100, but with these stipulations." And I'm like,
Right.
oh, okay." So not only am I trying to walk it now, I'm also trying to vocalize that to my community. Like, hey, this is what my new threshold is, which is a little bit different than what it has been before. But that's something that I've been trying to do to make sure that's there. Um, so that I can really, just stay true about it. I'm like, let me check in with myself. Let me do my stuff or whatever. And so, what about you? What do you got going on?
One thing that I do to stay sane, and I started actively implementing this actually during the pandemic because it's so funny that you mentioned wanting to be bored. I don't want to be bored. I do not like to be bored. And the pandemic was a time where everything was a little too still for me because growing up I always was in an extracurricular, and at the time when it happened, I was in college. And so with everything being on pause, there's no extracurriculars for me to do, and I was losing my marbles. And so one thing I implemented is just eat small, something simple, like always having something to look forward to every week. And at that time, it was literally just going to Starbucks once a week. That's how bored I was. But now that the world is back open, I do try to keep my schedule full and not too full to where I'm exhausted and my activities feel like some sort of obligation, but just at least one thing to look forward to. And always, like when it comes to consuming media, I like to laugh. I like everything to be lighthearted. I read books. My comfort show or comfort genre is honestly Medea. Whenever I'm sad, I just put on a Medea play because I'm going to laugh every time. So Medea is something to look forward to. It's how
I haven't watched Medea play in years. Okay, like
BET Plus has all of them.
wait, you said what has it?
BET Plus has all of them.
Oh wow, because like I probably haven't seen one since I was like in high school. Like this was
Or
like,
even
what?
Chico, they have the full on TikTok. I'm just saying. So
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. But again, I'm just excited for this new season of You Ask Me Answers. I'm excited to be here on the first episode with you, and I thank you to everybody who's been tuning in. If y'all have any questions, make sure to chime them in the chat. I know Jayla's going to wrap us up, but I'm just saying this out loud. And our team is going to be behind the scenes, continuing to answer these questions, do this work in community, be around for you all, and until the next show. And so in between then and there, we'll be able to continue to answer questions. Our DMs are always open. So, I'm just saying that I would love for y'all to continue to engage and do all this amazing stuff. And so, what else is there? And I think outside of that, again, it's just like, this is the time for us just to have these conversations. There's a lot of information coming out at us. 2025 is exhausting. We totally understand that. But we can find ways to continue to use our voices that's still venting our exhaustion and direct that at those who have the power to create the changes that we need. And so, make sure to continue to stay in touch. And so I don't know if I have anything else, but I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
Yes, again, of course, thank you all so much for joining. If between now and our next episode you see anything in the headlines that you have a question about that you would like to get fact checked, please do not hesitate to hit our DMs and send it to us, ask us, and we will definitely bring it up on our next episode. And speaking of our next episode, please everyone mark your calendars. We will be doing our next episode on Thursday, April 10th at the same time at 7 p.m. Again, our next episode will be on Thursday, April 10th at 7 p.m. And of course, make sure you like, follow, subscribe. And we are accepting volunteers and canvassers. So make sure to look it up on our website. Applications are open. We are hiring. And again, I am Jayla, your host, and I will see you guys in April. Bye-bye.